Alright, you guys, so this time we are reacting to infographic show why 2023 will be the worst year ever.
Said was
Sounds peachy. But we are also eating meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Very peachy.
things can only get better. As you'll see today, it's all unrelenting horror. Things are sometimes not your friends. Things can sucker punch you, torment you, torture you. Don't ever rely on things again. Let us explain. At the end of 2020, you said from the prison of your home, oh well, at least things can't get any worse. It turned out that 2021 was the experiential equivalent of falling in dog poop headfirst, getting a bit of said poop in your mouth, contracting salmonellosis, and then dying in a lonely hospital bed from sepsis as your pooch was taking up residence in your comfortable bed at home.
Dang.
2022 seemed to let up. For a while, you dared relax, to
Yeah.
let down your guard, and then just as soon as your mouth brazenly began to form a smile, that black hole of demoralization, aka the media, took you to the brink of despair by telling you mankind might soon be snuffed out. It felt like disaster dominoes. Catastrophe chair.
A business account could help boost your TikTok
Boy, it's been
content.
like 1
Here's
minute.
how. Meet Anya. So,
Yeah.
A game
It's
you
been
were
1
mixed up
minute.
in but
Damn.
did not want to play. Some of you dispirited spectators of endlessly bleak world events might think, I can't take any more of this. We understand you. It feels like God, if there is indeed a God, is playing some sick game up there testing the limits of your sanity. Why hast thou forsaken me, you might have asked after watching another news story on TV about how different news channels seem more concerned about refuting the other channel or smearing a sworn political enemy rather than trying to intelligently discuss possible solutions to those seemingly endless problems. First, there was COVID, the outbreak, which you have to admit you weren't too concerned about because it was on the other side of the world. Then the virus came knocking on your door and you weren't laughing anymore. You had to do a reshuffle, some spring cleaning regarding your hierarchy of external fears. Global warming came down a notch and being unable to breathe became everyone's number one problem. You almost lost your sanity for being imprisoned in your house for months on end with no one but your dreaded family. Every day, like a masochist without a cause, you checked websites to look at death rates. It was a sign of the times. Fear was your master, and you couldn't get enough of it. But it happened. The pandemic quelled. The line charts of death and suffering started their downhill journey. And even though some media never wanted to let you forget about it lest their viewership numbers stagnate, things really did get better. It was then that God up there in the clouds using nutcrackers to split apart sinful humans and a crab mallet to get the brain juice laughed out loud and said to himself, you fools, you ain't seen nothing yet, ha ha! 2023, my lab rats, is gonna knock you down on your backside. And no, we're not talking about monkeypox, although we will discuss something viral and awful later. What God was thinking about was the war in Ukraine. He wonders what Vladimir Putin will taste like and who he'll eat for dessert. There are so many sinners to think about. God knows only too well that there's a word in the human race of late that has become disturbingly
It's pretty obvious that they do not like God.
powerful. That word is escalation. Not long ago, humans barely heard the word. They'd usually only hear it in its proper noun form, a thing as in a set of moving stairs powered by a machine, i.e. an escalator. But now, escalation is a word that should give you nightmares. It's quite rightly one of the worst words in the human language right now. As this show is being created, everyone's talking about it. Some people even want it. But if they get it, they soon might find out that everyone they know will be burned to death in a huge ball of radioactive fire. You see, the main countries supporting Ukraine have been saying that they will keep up the military support. And while countries such as the US and the UK are already sending over billions of dollars of weapons, they've promised to top it up in 2023. This is gonna make life really hard for Russia. This, you're now thinking, is a great thing. You're proud of that support. Ukraine might just use those weapons.
I'm one of the kind of people who just like, stay out of there. What are you doing? You got something against us, your own people. You're like, stay out of there, bro. I'm sorry. I need to do some research on what they got up over there because I hear they have a lot of assets over there, and that's really the reason why they're sending troops. Not troops, but like sending help in general. Stay out of there, bro. You left $2 billion worth of airplanes, helicopters, and all kinds of war stuff. And I think it was Iran, Middle East somewhere. You left all that, bro, but you gonna come over here and start helping these? Man, come on, bro. Watch out.
weapons well, and Russia might be pushed back even further. But Putin just withdrawing his troops and saying, "Sorry guys," is highly unlikely. At least it feels that way right now as the show is being made. The war could get nuclear if Russia suffers more losses. This is not us being hysterical, it really could. And if it does, for millions of people, many millions, life will end, or at least become infinitely crap.
Bro, it is just time to, like, leave this country for real. And it's time to just go somewhere else. Somewhere that isn't, like, all up in that business. Because this is stupid. It's really stupid. On both sides, it's just stupid. Why do I gotta die? That's weird. But it's time to go. And I've been slacking. But it's really time to go.
People will then look back on lockdowns and their obsession with death statistics with a dreamy fondness. COVID will seem like a party. They'll miss the days of quiet, unexceptional lockdowns when life was more simple and people were kind. Just ask Fiona Hill, a former working-class Brit from the North who educated herself and went on to advise Presidents Bush, Obama, and Trump on Russia. She knows a lot about Russia. She's studied Putin for a lifetime. She knows more than most people about the things he's prepared to do. These words came from her mouth in 2022. Putin is increasingly operating emotionally and likely to use all the weapons at his disposal, including nuclear ones. She knows that
We back. We skipped the ad.
most folks think he would never go that far. To that she said, well, yes, he would. She believes this war may result in World War III. Maybe not now, but soon enough. She says the world as we know it has been changed forever. Of course, there's a comedic element to this show, as you might have guessed from that dog poop thing, but unfortunately, there's a very serious element to it. There are a lot of different opinions regarding this war and why it started. Still, one thing everyone agrees on is this is one of the scariest times in human history. Many people who have followed the US, Ukraine, NATO, Russia relationship for many years are now saying we should start accepting that a nuclear war could happen. Right now, we guess some of you are still saying, nah, I won't get to that. If that's true, why then are so many people who have the most expertise in this area saying it might? Do you know something they don't? The Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Chris Hedges put a lot of the blame on why this war started on NATO, and particularly US foreign policy. You might not agree with his assertions, many people don't, but maybe we should not ignore what he says when he tells us this skirmish of nations could well lead to the apocalypse. Apocalypse is a big word to bite off and digest, but if you've read your history, you'll know how stuff escalated to pure horror really fast during past wars. As we said, you might disagree with Hedges' take on the genesis of the war. He can at times sound like a doom-addicted preacher, but that might be because he's a student of war and has covered war for decades. You might not want to take all his comments lightly, especially when he says such things as, war accelerates the whirlwind of industrial killing. The longer any war continues, the closer and closer each side comes to self-annihilation. Unless it is stopped, the proxy war between Russia and the US in Ukraine all but guarantees direct confrontation with Russia, and with it the very real possibility of nuclear war.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you dislike him for saying proxy war. What matters is his contention about obliterative escalation. In that regard, he agrees with Mrs. Hill, even if they disagree on many other things. As we make this show, a Harvard Kennedy School professor says there's a 10 to 20% chance this war will become nuclear. The more Ukraine is successful, the higher the likelihood of nuclear war, he said. That doesn't mean people shouldn't want Ukraine to have success. The country has been invaded, a war crime no less, and its citizens are suffering, but ironically, success might also mean apocalypse. Diplomacy would be a better option, but it seems some people are allergic to it. People right now are banging drums for more war, yet we're on the precipice of something truly cataclysmic. They say Putin is using nuclear blackmail, and by God, should mankind hope this is true. But what if it isn't? This might mean 2023 is the worst year since humans started drawing their dinner on cave walls. This war, to some analysts, is the start of something that could get really, really serious. China might even get involved. Many people are now talking about a lot more than the daily news reports about Russia and Ukrainian wins and losses on the battlefield. Some people say the military-industrial complex doesn't want the war to stop. It wants escalation, since stopping would be cutting off that sweet flood of money. The eternal threat means constant military expansion. But what if China becomes just as powerful as the US in the near future? If unipolarity becomes bipolarity, what then? This is a time of great change in the world of international politics, and you should be very concerned. If things go wrong in 2023, it will be the worst year in the history of our planet. Let's face it, there seems to be more hawks than doves right now within the various poles of global power politics. Are the hawks really willing to take us to the hell that is nuclear war? The BBC wrote in October, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian officials have begun to prepare their society for the possible use of nuclear weapons. The New York Times wrote about the same time, Ukrainians brace for possibility of Russian nuclear strike. It may start with tactical nukes, but soon escalate to strategic nukes. If something like it does happen, we're doomed. Just look at what happened in Japan with only 2 nuclear bombs, and relatively meager ones at that. Japan surrendered. It makes the recent New York City nuclear survival ad on TV look absolutely ridiculous. If the big one hits, the woman in the ad said, we should close our windows. We don't think closing your windows will help very much. The ad even then tells viewers that after the explosion, they should use soap and water to clean themselves of the radioactive dust. Well, what if they don't have any skin to clean? What if they're too vaporized to get to a bathroom that no longer exists? This ad was directed at New Yorkers, too, a densely populated city that would be an attractive target to an enemy. Many people who've studied what would happen in the event of a full-blown nuclear war have talked about a nuclear holocaust happening. You cannot just dust off an attack then go back to watching Love Island on your TV as if nothing happened. It means mass death on a scale humanity has never seen. Soap and water won't make much of a difference. We're not sure if enough people really understand the gravity of nuclear war.
This is a nervous laugh. That's crazy, bro. Alright, this is the end of part 1. This is some crazy stuff. It's time to leave, bro. It's time to leave. Shout out to my boy FedEx, you already know. Oh, shout out to my boy FedEx, you already know. I'm playing. This is just a shirt. But, yeah, man. This might be it. Apparently. Experts are talking. Everybody's talking. It's pretty scary. It is time to move. Yeah. I kind of want to live